I'm Bryan Bodner with BlockFi, and this is Moving the Chains. Let's get it. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of BlockFi's Moving the Chain series. Let's get it. Today we got Ryan Grant, Pro Bowl running back, Super Bowl champion, and perhaps most notably, Bergen County high school football legend. Great connect again, Ryan, and thanks for joining us.
Oh, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
For those listening who are unaware, why don't you tell our audience a bit more about your journey to the NFL and the time you spent in the Packers?
My journey to the NFL, that was it's a funny one because didn't go well early on. But I was, as you know, as you said, I'm from Bergen County. Well, I played football in Bergen County. I'm actually from Rockland County in New York. But Bergen County, known for good football. I went to Don Bosco Prep, which is pretty much a powerhouse and known as being one of the top schools in the state and nation. And from there, I was able to go to Notre Dame. Career went okay, and I went to wasn't drafted into the NFL, but I went as a high priority free agent and was with the Giants initially, and then my third year was traded to Green Bay, and that was somewhat of the unknown, and not too many guys. Well, maybe now it might change, but for the most part, guys with Green Bay, it's like, what's in there? Unless you're from Wisconsin or from that area, you don't really know much. So I knew Brett Favre and I knew Cheesehead, like that's it. And I got traded. Literally, I was there first day of the regular season. I get traded. They tell me I make the team, then they tell me I get traded, and I flew out the next morning, crack of dawn, and was on the practice field, and things were able to work out. I was there with Brett's last year, and we went 13-3, NFC Championship, lost to the Giants. And then I was with Aaron for 6 or 7 years, something like that. And it was great. It was really, I was able to do some positive things yardage-wise. We were able to get a ring. I did some personal things very well. It was great to be a part of an organization like the Packers, because from Jump Street, you realize that everyone in Green Bay is willing to do whatever it takes to help us win. And you don't see that across the league and with every organization in sports. So to be a part of something like that special, where the expectation is so high across the board, and everyone's just willing to go above and beyond of their job description. I mean this from like the equipment managers, coaches, training staff, the groundskeepers, to our seamstresses. Like it's almost like hilarious what they used to do. I used to get my jersey stitched in particular ways, like the day of the game. Like, oh no, can you do this? Can you do that? You know, people don't know that when it snows for Lambeau, the like residents come and like shovel it. They shovel the stadium.
I don't know that.
It's pretty wild. Like I tell people, I never mowed my lawn or plowed my driveway in Green Bay. Like fans and neighbors would.
That's amazing.
It's really interesting. It's very much the best way to kind of describe it for people is it's like a college atmosphere.
I was about to say that. That's everything I've heard about Green Bay. It's very much like
the stadium's literally in a residential area. Across the street are houses.
Yeah.
Like we would walk. One of my guys had a house that it was a good friend of his that owned the house, and they would use it for certain, parties or events or whatever it may be. And there were times after games we would just walk, literally from the stadium right to the house. And you don't see that. You're not going to see that anywhere else in the pros, especially in a big city. So it's one of those things that Green Bay, what the football team, what the organization does for the city, is like no other. You'll never see that, because in today's day and age, it wouldn't make sense to have a pro team anywhere in a city like Green Bay. It wouldn't make sense financially. There's just so many things that it wouldn't make sense logistically. So to be able to have that experience and be a part of teams that we won a lot of games, it's pretty special.
Yeah, if you take it back to your first team in my hometown team, the Giants, one, you're not going to have an NFL stadium in the middle of Manhattan. And two, absolutely, if you walk across the street from the Meadowlands, you're not going many places. You're going pretty much into a swamp.
So, how about I say you're going to stay? Yeah, so
Different.
very but I will say both organizations are really strong, and I appreciated my time with the Giants, and I still got a lot of love for them because they gave me my first shot. So
100%. Hometown team, too. Not too bad also go from the Giants then to playing with both Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. It's
not bad.
not the worst
Tell
thing.
people, yeah, my pro quarterbacks were Eli Manning, Brett Favre, and Aaron Rodgers, so it's not bad.
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's
So
pretty.
you mentioned growing up in Rockland County, playing football in Bergen County. Me and Ryan actually played high school sports, maybe not at the same time, but about 10 minutes from each other. Ryan might have taken a little bit further than me, but we're both here today. So, yeah, you told me when we spoke in the past, you mentioned that you have a bunch of other business ventures outside of football. Do you want to expand upon that for our audience a bit?
While I was in the league and when I retired, I met a really good group of people. We spoke off camera that I owned a cafe for a while in Brooklyn, and that was a phenomenal experience for me. I just recently sold it, but that was great. It was called AP Cafe in Bushwick, Brooklyn, an area that was booming and growing, and now it's I don't even recognize it at this point. We were one of the first in there, and that was kind of a lot of it kickstarted a lot of the stuff we were doing. Some of it was learning on the fly, but that went well. And then I was fortunate to have a financial team that was basically straight shooters with me, and they were able to kind of, and they said normally they're not really having these conversations with a lot of their clients, but I was asking a lot of questions about different things. And I've always been the type of person that, hey, just shoot me straight and, give me the same relationship I had with my agent. And I was able to get in some interesting situations in regards to like property development and real estate. So I was able to buy some property all over the country in different spaces, Detroit, Philadelphia, California, and work in the rental areas. And then also now I'm working in residential development and, flipping homes and stuff like that. So I'm also building in Mexico. I have how many years has it been? It's been, wow, maybe like 4 or 5 years, but I've had property, but I think it's like 4 years. And yeah, we're building basically villas and luxury homes down in Mexico right now. And that's a space that's really interesting. So those are my main focuses. I've been fortunate to be able to invest in a few different projects and a few different venues and the concerts and shows that have done really well across globally. Actually, I work with a good friend of mine that does that for a living, and so I've been able to really we've made some pretty good strides with that. And I've just been fortunate. Honestly, I think the biggest thing for me is that I've had some really strong and smart people that are way smarter than me, and a supporting group that have navigated, educated me, allowed me to learn, and steered me in the right direction in regards to investments.
That's great. You mentioned building Mexico. Do you want to give a quick shout out to the newest production that's coming to be? You want to tell our audience about what's to come?
Yeah, so it's actually, you somewhat know that because one of the times we spoke, I was actually in Mexico, and I'm down there pretty frequently. Yeah, I'm building in Tulum, which is a hotspot for so many people, going for years now. But we're building a luxury home, which is going to be used for a few different multi-purpose off-sites, retreats, branding purposes. It could be record labels. It could be, we could do a BlockFi convention. We could do there's so many different ways that the house will be used. But I want it to be a space where people can come together, congregate, and formulate ideas, work together, heal, help each other across the board. So that's the space. That's the mentality behind the house. And then also we're building villas for rentals and for to potentially be purchased and everything. So I own 5 acres in Tulum, and there's about 22 acres that we own about 20 minutes west of Tulum. So I plan on doing some other stuff to help the locals with jobs and stuff like that, to try to help the area down there and stuff like that financially. So yeah, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot working in another country, but I'm excited about it. And like I said, once again, I got a great group of guys. Very fortunate to have people that we work from a place of love. It's business, but we definitely we enjoy working with each other, and we work hard for each other.
So you were fortunate in the sense that you were always thinking ahead. It sounds like you're a bright guy. We spoke a number of times. You were thinking about your life after football and your financials and your business. You had a good team around you. You were very fortunate.
Yeah.
You hear, however, a lot of cautionary tales over the years of athletes. Some have signed 9-figure contracts and they have some financial issues down the road. Some players aren't thinking about it, whether through poor spending habits, bad investments, not having the right team around them. You hear a lot of really scary situations come up, sports for athletes like yourself and your teammates, etc. How have some of those situations unfolded, and what can be done from your perspective as someone who's been in that locker room and knows these guys to better prevent this from happening for athletes going forward down the road?
I actually think it's happening.
Okay.
And I actually think that it is happening because awareness is really the thing that helps guys. Most guys are unaware of pitfalls the same way that most guys are unaware of potential opportunities. You know, it's the same thing to me. And I think that in today's day and age, information is clearly out there and it's widespread, and the ability to get information. I always tell people now, it's like, there's no excuse for not knowing something that you want to know, because there's so many ways to be able to find it out. But I do, the league has always, for the most part, tried to help guys in giving financial literacy and just conversations around certain things. It is hard though, because of the demand. And I think that most people don't really understand the difficulties that come along with doing anything outside of your pro sport, because the demand of what we do is so high that our time is so limited to do anything else.
Yeah.
And guys that are able to balance that is phenomenal, but most guys can't, especially if they have families and, other things. So to try to get guys to study financial literacy and in season, it's almost impossible. Number one, they just don't have the time. Our days, like I tell people, I would get to the office, and when I called office, I would get to work at 6:30, and I would go sometimes until 7. That you're putting in 13-hour days. And as people are saying, oh, you just don't go out there. No, we're in meetings upon meetings. We're lifting. We're on the field, more meetings, and then we're studying film, extra stuff, extra work. And it's because at the end of the day, we are elite. And so with anything, this, Bryan, elite put in elite work and elite time. And so to expect us to be able to know what's going on in this area, in a totally different area, it's somewhat unrealistic. Yes. And I think that nowadays more guys are seeing the pitfalls because they're hearing about it. It's more prevalent. It's more in their face. So of course they're doing their due diligence to actually help. Because I've heard a lot more conversations. I think everyone right now knows who the big dog is in the sector of widening the palette. LeBron James, what he's done with him and Mav Carter are clearly, they've set the bar so high and have done phenomenally for a few different reasons. Because LeBron is LeBron and he's able to put himself in a space because he is, but also because he has the foresight to actually do those types of things, and he has a great team around him. And of course, so I think it's a great example. Not everything that guys are going to be able to do is going to work the way LeBron is, but I do think that guys are actually paying a little more attention in regards to, even while they're in college. With a very different space now, the idea around personal branding and personal value and what that looks like, and families. Listen, 20 years ago, nobody was talking about the Ball brother. It just wouldn't have been a conversation, and what they would have been doing to try to help themselves out and put themselves in positions. So I actually think, I think it's slowly happening from an education aspect. More guys are going back and furthering education in business and taking advantage of these opportunities. And just where I think guys are trying to be more well-rounded, and what that comes along with putting yourself in a better position educationally.
Yeah. There's a few things you mentioned that I want to unpack. There's a lot of great stuff in there. The first is on college players getting involved. I can say firsthand that I've actually had a number of college players who have, through other channels, reached out to us looking to get more education on what we're doing here, with the anticipation that in the near future, they'll likely have a lot more access to funds, and they're trying to set themselves up in advance to kind of have that knowledge base and awareness, like you mentioned, before they even get in that situation. So they're kind of like preemptively putting themselves in a good position to succeed before they even get there, which is really, really smart, and maybe something that a handful of years ago you might not have seen. So that's one thing. The other thing you mentioned that I kind of want to dive into a bit further also is this thing of access to information and guys being in meetings all day and around each other. When you were in the locker room, is this something you guys would talk to each other about? Different business ideas, saving strategies, ways to protect your wealth? Is that something that would really ever come up in conversation between you and different teammates?
Somewhat. The smart teammates, the guys who were really, I had, who was, my fullback was John Kuhn.
Mm-hmm.
I think he studied like chemical engineering and like super smart guy, really bright guy, just a smart individual, highbrow thinking guy. And so we would have certain conversations about certain things, but there weren't a lot. You know what's funny? A lot of the conversations I had were some of the guys who worked for the Packers, but were no longer playing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're former players, but now they worked what we would call like upstairs. So they worked, player consult, like player development, those type of things. Because it was hard. It was hard in season to have a lot of those conversations. Now I think that it's more a part of the daily because people are seeing everything with Twitter. We didn't have that stuff where it was constantly in your face. And we weren't even having as many. I'm sure the amount of political conversations that go on in the locker room now are so much. We weren't having that as much just because we were it was more of a bubble. You were more isolated in what was going on, social media had, the end of my career, social media had just started, getting involved, and it still was something that there was leeriness. Like organizations didn't have social media, the players might have had certain things, and the conversation around that was very different. So it wasn't as big. There were definitely, certain groups we would talk about certain things. I remember one of my teammates, we were having conversations about real estate and what that looks like. In different parts of the country and stuff like that, because I was actually curious. We all came from different areas, so the value, as the value of real estate is very different. I had a couple of teammates that they were from Idaho, so when they were talking to me about pricing, I'm like, what this? But I didn't see the value in Idaho. Like I don't know anything about Idaho, so what that did, it was just information. Yeah, there were a few conversations here and there, but I definitely wasn't having. And in hindsight, it's one of those things. Like I wish I was probably picking more brains, but at the end of the day, I was
giving the attention. You're busy getting a Pro Bowl nomination. You're busy you had bigger things to fry.
Yeah, I was trying to get a job playing football, so it's kind of difficult. But yeah, there were a couple conversations here and there, but nothing to the extent. I think once I retired, and now guys were curious in what you're doing, and then I tell them what they're doing, what I'm doing, or I ask them what they're doing, that's when the conversations kind of dive in. Like right now, I talk with Mark Tauscher. I talk with a bunch of guys. I talked to A-Rod a couple of weeks ago, and he asked me like some of the stuff I told him he was doing. He was like, all right, cool. So we're gonna talk a little, we're gonna further on that and expand on that little off season. But that's what happens, and we're older now. So it's one of those things that when you're in it and you're young and you're in the, you care about the game, you don't even know, Brian, like, my guys that when we played in the league, the older you get, you're not even talking about, when you reach out to guys that your boys that play for other teams, you're not even asking about the game. You're just asking them, you safe? You healthy? Like, you good to go? Okay, cool. Like, all right, all good. Like,
family's all good, all that.
Yeah, family, those are the things like it's, the game is the game, and you've been playing it for so long that you understand it is what it is, but you just kind of move on. Now you're in a different thing. So now it's like, we don't need to have conversations about football. Now we can have conversations about like what other things are interesting. Oh, you're doing, when how many guys I had reach out to me when I started talking about crypto and Bitcoin, just in my little tweets. Guys that I play, they're like, RG, man, what's up? School me. I got all my boys from Notre Dame, and they're like, just tell me the deal. And I'm like, okay, well, I can give you a little bit. I say, but information is easy. I was like, here's some like basic videos just to give you an understanding of like what crypto looks like in blockchain stuff. So,
for sure.
But yeah, now we're having those conversations, of course.
Maybe Aaron Rodgers might be one of those conversations, maybe not. I don't know.
It's just a really interesting space. So I do think that it could be, you're starting to hear a all these, JP Morgans and all these different banks that are coming out and basically now somewhat speaking to the possibility of it. There's not many, I think. So who was it? Was it Bloomberg? No. BlackRock. Who was it that came out that basically the CEO basically said like, oh yeah, you should have it a part of your portfolio, and like that's phenomenal. The moment you start having
BlackRock was one of them.
Yeah. So the moment you have that, where these CEOs are coming out and saying, yeah, we do think that Bitcoin should be a part of your portfolio. What do you think that's going to do for all the people who, whether they trust it or not, if their financial advisors are saying that, they're going to go involve themselves in it. So I do think that it is something to have a potential to be a part of people's portfolios and investment, and something where they could put funds into a trust or whatever it may be that will grow, in time. And especially when nowadays you're looking at have yourself in a savings, and that you're going to end up losing money regardless. You're going to actually the way with inflation and everything. So yeah, I emphatically believe that this is something, crypto and Bitcoin is something that people can jump into. I saw that Russell Okung is I guess he's the first, I don't know, athlete, but I know he's the first NFL player to ask to be paid in Bitcoin.
Yeah, and, big one.
That's monumental. It's a blockbuster, and we don't know yet whether or not it's a good decision, but I do think it's good for it opens the door for possibilities, and it opens the door for people to say, oh wow, I want this, and to look into it, which means looking into it is that you can see, you see more up and downs, there'll be more awareness, which means that they'll be able to make more sound decisions around it. So, and also I like the fact that I think it's a good decision for Russell specifically because he's been in the game for a while. Like, he's been playing a while. It's not his first, his first contract. I wouldn't advise necessarily the young guys saying their first contract just because they need to inform themselves. But I do think that the potential, I think it's the sky's the limit right now. And I think that so many more people now, of course, because they're starting to hear more and more, it just will continue to build, even with the potential, the volatility and everything like that.
Yeah. So you mentioned Russell Okung there. He's working with a company called Zap, and the CEO of Zap, Jack Mallers, was basically talking in accordance with Russell Okung, talking about how when people are saving in dollars right now, they're effectively operating at a loss because the dollar is by design going to be worth less in the future than it is now. The Fed is aiming for a 2% annual inflation rate. And when in reality, depending on what you look at, if you look beyond CPI metrics, and some people are starting to look at different asset inflation metrics, it might even be beyond that. And it's not a flaw in the dollar, it's by design. It's designed to devalue over time. And so Jack Muller is basically talking about how this offers a way for Russell, who's now, I believe, taking half, if I recall, of his contract going forward in Bitcoin. He can get some dollars where he'll need to spend to live his life or whatever he needs, and he'll be able to keep half in Bitcoin to help him save properly and kind of not operate at a loss in that way. So I think, like you said, really opens the door for a lot of athletes to maybe take advantage of the same thing that Russell's looking at.
Yeah, I think kudos to him for being a pioneer in that space. It's wonderful. I think that it takes a lot of gumption. You got to be able to be that guy, whether you believe it or not, and whether you're, gun-ho around the idea and full force. It still takes a lot to be able to step in that space and have, I'm sure, because the amount of people are like, are you sure you want to do this? But I like the fact that he's full force about it. He knows what he's done. He's done his due diligence. So yeah, I'm excited. I think that, it just opens up so many doors for guys being able to, it's just options, it's just like giving an opportunity to give people a different option. No, I don't, so there you go.
100%. And you also mentioned that you first heard about Bitcoin in 2011 from your brother, which is very early. I cannot say the same myself. You mentioned you first bought in 2013, held for a little bit, sold, may or may not have now again. What were your thoughts when you first heard about Bitcoin and kind of how they evolved to where your thoughts are now?
My thoughts about Bitcoin were similar. I did think that I wasn't sold on Bitcoin, but then because I didn't see the application of it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what most people most people who are not sold or they're leery of it, they don't understand it. And that's where even myself. So once I looked into blockchain, into the technology on how it was created and then what that looks like, that's where I started to say, okay, that's interesting, because I do believe that every aspect of our life is becoming digital, and there's not much value in the dot. Like it's just holding cat. Like it doesn't matter at this point. And so, understanding that, I just started to like streamline it, and I was looking, I'm like, yeah, this makes the most sense, that this will be the future. And yes, most people are not anything in the future that comes. The internet, nobody thought the internet was going to actually be what it is. They thought it wouldn't be able to scale. They thought, globally, blah, 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 blah. So understanding that, I equated blockchain to the internet. And I said, okay, the technology is the internet. And then Bitcoin, I think, is
like AOL application of it.
Exactly. I was like, and what happened is that, yeah, everybody turned it down. And I do think, I personally, I think that Bitcoin will at some point happen. And because it is the first, usually the first don't outlast everyone else. But I think that we're so early on in that process. You know what I mean? That
I may disagree with you on that in particular, but
which is fair. Yeah. But I do think that it's right now it's the king, and it's showing. There's application that, listen, every day we have a group chat of guys we talk about. There's just like Bitcoin ATMs. There's all these machines. Like there's just so much you're seeing. And I remember you told me that I believe the CEO of BlockFi, he tried to buy a house in Bitcoin.
Yeah,
that was actually like what made him decide to create that. So it's just like, yeah, I actually thought about selling one of my houses in New Jersey, and I actually thought about asking if I could. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should do that. It's one of those things that it's from Jump Street. It took me a couple years to actually see the application and to see how it can be applied down the road. But now I'm full force. Yeah, I'm in. And I think that this is not a short-term play for me in regards to like 8 months, like that. I tell people, I'm like, no. So even in the dips and in certain things, I am able to right now see the big picture about it. And I think that, like we said about the dollar, I was actually just reading something the other day about that 2% based upon inflation, and like literally over a 10-year span, you've lost 20% of your money. That's at least 20% of your money, just based upon what naturally the dollar is supposed to do. Like it's not even your fault. It's like, yeah, why would you do that? Another one, my friend that works in the financial sector, had sent me sent me basically all these charts and was like, I know we know this, but we can't stress enough to our family members that people who have money, the more people that have money, they don't keep their money in savings.
Yeah.
It's like, do not do that. You're not like, I don't care if that's a $50 check or whatever it may be. You just don't do that. And I think that, it's a mentality thing. You have to get yourself out of that mentality. So hopefully right now we're in a day and age where there's so much information, and guys are, and everybody's just willing to, step out of their shell and go down a different space, because I do think that this is a sector that is it's wide doors open. Would you equate it right now to like the Wild West? Like how would you equate crypto in regards to the space that you're in? Because, I do think that most cryptos are not going to actually be able to come to fruition or like basically make it through.
Yeah.
But there's just there's a lot of information, and there's a lot of things to be had and to be made.
Yeah, 100%. I would say for me personally, and this is just myself speaking, not necessarily the company's thoughts here, but like you said, I would agree that there's thousands of crypto projects now. There's a good chance that a lot of them will not necessarily achieve what they're set out to do. But that being said, the small few that do have the real value, these are going to be world-changing networks and programs and applications that, like you said, just like the internet, will really revolutionize the way that we operate as a society. And I do like the analogy of a gold rush kind of, because obviously there's a big narrative now with Bitcoin is digital gold. You have like the Bitcoin miners versus like gold miners. And trying to like dig it up as quick as possible. But so it's I like that one. I like the gold rush analogy.
Like, I think I'm excited in the fact that there is some unknown, and I'm also excited in the fact that we're moving into a day and age where you see this has the potential to be something new.
Yeah. And
Like,
one more thing on that. We've had some conversations with some different sports organizations who maybe not the NFL, but are looking at potentially taking ticket sales in different crypto assets. And I think you're really starting to see this kind of start to permeate the mainstream in a sense where I think gaming is a very logical first step, since obviously it's all virtual, remote, online, etc. It's a really logical first step, and there's a ton of gaming and cryptocurrency intersection. I think even still, we're now starting to have conversations where some of these leagues are seeing what's happening and seeing these, especially for some of these more global organizations where it's not necessarily beholden to just the US. There's a really big opportunity for them to collect ticket sales from people in different countries, different currencies, et cetera, with crypto. So I think that it's pretty cool.
looking, yeah, it's almost like the sky's the limit, because there's so many different ways, and just in general, and because we have so many different sectors now in life,
Yeah.
crypto can kind of insert itself in all those. And I'm excited. I'm looking forward to where the conversation goes. Honestly, this is why I like BlockFi, because you were one of the first to do something that, of course, helped a lot of is helping a lot of people out. But I think that, being on the forefront, I'm excited around the opportunities that you guys are building and what you're doing with it. So I'm also I'm excited to see where you guys continue to go.
Appreciate that. And with that in mind, to paraphrase you, Bitcoin's at 40,000, and we're going to talk about sports. So this year, you're sitting at home. You might be watching your former coach who you won the Super Bowl with, Mike McCarthy. Had not the strongest start to the year with the Cowboys, but conversely, you got your former quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, looking just as sharp as ever, maybe even better than ever. I believe he's on pace now the season's over, I believe he's near the marks for career highs in passing yards, touchdowns, and completion percentage. What's it like for you now that you're retired, you moved on, as you sit home kind of watching some of your former colleagues who you played with and kind of compete at the highest levels with have varying degrees of success in those different ways?
Well, it's always great to see guys that you play with still playing, number one. That's listen, I've been around, so just the fact that they're still playing is great. I look at guys like Frank Gore. The fact that he's still rocking is phenomenal. But yeah, it's great. Mike, to speak on Mike first, with Mike's situation, I'm a little surprised. I did actually think he was going to have a good season, and I was looking forward to him having a good season with Dallas, even though I'm not a Dallas fan, but I am a fan of Mike. And I think he will. I think he'll turn some things around. They definitely need to make a couple changes and do certain things, but I expect him to, do what it takes to get it done. He's a Texas guy. I think he'll get it done, man. And I think Jerry Jones will give him an opportunity to get it done. With that said, Aaron is Aaron. Anybody? Listen, I think I'm always telling Packer fans, like, listen, Packer fans, we love you and you're the best, but just at this point in time, just don't talk about Aaron. Like, Aaron's the best. Plain and simple. He has a year where it's not, quote unquote, Aaron's expectation and what we've seen product wise, and you automatically start thinking, oh, this. No, he's still the best. And he clearly proved it this year. MVP, he outscored our team in 2011, I thought that was almost impossible to do. It's phenomenal to see what he's able to do at the level that he's been able to do so consistently. That, because he's so consistent, the expectation is so high that, like he said something around like a down year for him is a career year for guys. Guys, something that guys have never done. So it's I've actually spoke to him a few times this year, and it's great to actually hear him and hear his perspective, because I know that a lot of people think he has this chip on his shoulder. but I actually see it very differently. And I don't think he has a chip on his shoulder. I think he's in the clearest personal space that he's been in. And I think he has the clearest understanding. And I think football's fun again for him. I think that he feels excited to go out there. He's enthusiastic about it, and he's at peace with himself in the situation. So now he can just go play ball. That's how I see it. Yeah, and listen, because everybody, he's the beast. He's been the beast, but you can't really. It's easy to be the beast when everything is cool inside you. When you're good and you feel good about your situation, you're like, oh, I got all my stuff set, ready to go. Then you can just go out there and do what you got to do. So I'm excited for him. I'm excited for the squad. I like the team that they got. They got a bunch of good guys, and they got some really good leaders. I'm feeling good, man. It's been great to watch guys step up, young dudes, and then hear Aaron feel good about that, because he's in a different role now. Even though he's still playing as Aaron, he's definitely old man Aaron you know what I mean? He's the leader and everything like that. So there are certain things that he's not necessarily doing and then have to do a little more of. So I'm excited for them, and I'm looking forward. It's one of those situations. The year you're most excited and everything like that, nobody can go to games. So that's how it goes. I think it's forcing us to kind of put things in perspective.
Is Rodgers the MVP?
Of course. That's not even kind of come up, right?
Next question.
They were wrapping it and sending it to Lambeau as the game was going on.
Cool. So last thing I wanted to kind of touch on, with both the aspects of crypto, you mentioned gaming. We're seeing Spencer Dinwiddie has paved the way with tokenization of contracts. What I'm getting at here is that there's been a real push for kind of the gamification of sports, where they're basically building another business layer on top of the game itself. What are your thoughts on that, with kind of building out the business aspects of sports in kind of a whole new creative way?
I think it's brilliant and phenomenal. It's not an issue, and it's just something that I think that athletes, as it's being built out, athletes need to start to educate themselves on it, is because so that they can become a part of it, as opposed to it becoming a part of them. Like I said, the tokenization of contracts is phenomenal. Like, I'm all about being able to make money on, any opportunity where I can make money on my money.
Yeah.
And, and I don't have a problem other people being able to make money on my money, because that means I'm making more money on my, absolutely. So I think so if that makes sense, what I'm saying in regards to, it's a phenomenal space and an opportunity. And like I said, I'm very novice and somewhat naive to it. So I've heard a few things about it, and I've looked into a little bit, but I need to educate myself as well. But I think it's right in line with where we're going from a technologically aspect. So, and I'm excited. I want the guys to really just inform themselves as much, and educate themselves, and just like put a pin in it and just look at it. Okay, that is something, because it has the potential to absolutely help guys out, and just be something added on. And at the same breath, guess what? There will be businesses who are doing this, and guys are going to be like, oh yeah, I'm involved, but how much money are they making off of you when you don't have a part of it? So I'm all about empowering the athletes, empowering the gamers, and all the people. And really, it's at the end of the day, it's just from empowering them from an awareness aspect, because then you make a decision. I don't think not everybody needs to be involved in it. Like, not every player wants to.
Options, like you said earlier, options.
Exactly. Perfect. Yeah, it's just another opportunity and another avenue. It gives people an opportunity to potentially add on to their, net worth, to their portfolio, whatever it may be. So I think it's great, man. It is something that's like, it's exciting. So, and I like any dudes that step into new sectors and are like willing to be the ones to do. I like all that, man. Because it's like, it's scary, but it's like, I'm with it. So I like it. I'm actually going to probably look into it more after we get off.
Yeah, for sure. And as long as the incentives are aligned, and everyone's kind of like moving in the same direction where it's a win-win for everybody involved, it's a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it can't be so open-ended that everybody, because then there'll be there's no streamline and nobody will be on the same page, like you said. Like you can't have people thinking one thing and different. There has to almost be like a set of this is how it has to go and this is what it'll look like. So, but opportunities, yeah.
Did you ever? I gotta ask. Did you ever play fantasy football yourself?
Not really. A little bit, but not to the point. I realized early on that if I played fantasy football, I would go nuts. I would actually be one of those guys that if I was to do it, I would be so intense about it that I'm like, no, I don't even want to have this relationship with getting mad at certain. No, absolutely not. And I did. I was a part of fantasy football when it like first started booming, and I did one year. I guess I helped a lot of people because when I came on the scene, and then I had this expectation. I guess the next year I didn't do as well for people fantasy wise, so it was like, well,
everyone's tweeting at you.
Trash. Yeah, I went from being like gold to now it's like, oh, get out of here, man. Yeah. So it's just one of those things that it's twofold. I think what it did was it immediately gave guys an opportunity and gave fans. It increased awareness around the league because fans were now looking at other players outside of just their team, and what that builds branding, it builds marketing. Exactly. So I think that's phenomenal. But in the same breath, the personal attachment to a player's performance or underperformance, that became something, and it's like, whoa, what are you doing? Like, hold on. First of all, a lot of times players don't even have an opportunity like that, has nothing to do with me. They say, how come you don't get the ball? And I'm like, I don't control the carries.
Oh, my number.
I'm about to say, you see who my quarterback is? Like, what do you mean? So, there's like with anything, there's always a give and take. Yeah. Like, listen, that play was supposed to be a run. Aaron just threw it. There's give and take, and I think fantasy football has been great because what it did was it generated money out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It just created a new stream of revenue and a new platform for money. So I'm for it. I think it's cool, and I am interested to see. I'm not like super involved in it, so I don't even know how it's really changed or if it's changed in many capacities. But I'd like to, see where it goes. And, trust me, if crypto's involved, I have no problem getting involved.
Yeah. I gotta give a shout out also. My good friend Andrew, who I've actually been down in Miami with recently. He let me know when I told him I was recording with you. You actually won him his fantasy football the year you were a Pro Bowler. You helped him win. So I gotta give him a shout out for you.
All right, bro. Here you go, man. All right. Glad I was about. See, for as many him, it's probably 1,000 dudes that are like, that dude lost me, whatever it may be. So I apologize to the guys whose fantasy team I didn't help. I apologize.
It's always so fun when you see these people who actually get like legitimately angry at players for it. But
cool. Man, yeah, they're out there. Trust me, they are out there, man. So. It's but it's cool, man. And there are a lot of guys in the league who are actually very much involved. I know Maurice Jones-Drew is super involved in the fantasy game. I like that, so it's cool, man. And I think it gave us opportunity to connect this more.
Sure. Cool. Well, before we wrap up, any questions you have for me? BlockFi, Bitcoin, anything in general?
No. Where do you think we're going in the next 3 months? Where do you think these numbers are going to go?
The next 3 months, I don't know. And I'm going to caveat this for all of our audience out there. This is not financial advice. This is just one man's opinion, I guess. But you have seen in the past halving cycles that there tends to be a similar pattern with the lag between when the halving happens, which for those who are unaware is when the new supply that enters the market through mining awards gets cut in half. That happened this past May. And typically what we've seen, which has happened so far at least, is about 6 months before the price tends to generally appreciate in advance a little bit of it. And then roughly for the next 12 months after the halving, there tends to be, or the next 12 to 18 months after the halving, there tends to be a pretty dramatic price appreciation, some of which we've started to see already. So I would say that my expectation is that it would follow a similar trajectory of past cycles. But again, it could definitely, past performance is not indicative of what could happen. Would definitely not suggest anybody invest more than willing to lose. You never know what happens. And we'll see. It's exciting. Regardless, I think all the attention surrounding Bitcoin, the space in general, there's some other big projects that are popping up. ETH, I think, actually just passed its new all-time high today as well. So there's a lot of excitement, a lot of new avenues. And I think the biggest thing, more so than the price appreciation, is companies like BlockFi and a bunch of others who are building the infrastructure to make this a much more legitimate ecosystem than it was the last time around, which hopefully should have a much more staying power and less of a dramatic kind of fall off that we've seen in past cycles. So hopefully that builds much more comfort for some of these institutions that have now joined to kind of be here for the long haul.
Got you. Can you speak on anything new that BlockFi is presenting that you're looking forward to?
In the future, we do have a lot of exciting products down the line. We're building pretty aggressively within, I sit on the private client side, within the global digital markets team. We're building out our services in that front pretty aggressively as well. So for any former players, anybody else, we'd love to have a call, let you know how we can help you optimize, whether it's through borrowing, lending, trading, etc. We got a lot of new products on the horizon that can really help to optimize your holdings. So really excited to see that come through.
Wonderful, man. Yeah,
awesome.
I think BlockFi is the truth. So
that's what we're here for. And so Ryan, we were talking also before this that you're starting a new podcast yourself. You want to give a quick shout out over what you're building and what you're talking about, and give our audience a sneak preview?
Yeah, so I'm building out this podcast. It's called Profits in Process, and it's basically about process and the value in process, and how the gold is in the process, and people's perspective in personal process and what that looks like, and all different fields. And we set goals, of course, and the goals are phenomenal, but it's in the achievement, in the path that it takes to achieve that goal is really where you gain the value and the sense of self and the sense of understanding of what it takes to be who you are and what makes you tick as an individual. So, and I'm big on awareness. I'm big on perspective and being able to keep yourself dancing in and out of what you're doing. So yeah, it's been great. I'm stockpiling, as I said, I'm stockpiling content because I'm gonna pitch it, but we've done some really great interviews, and I have I'm really interested to interview some really awesome people in all different fields and just hear because process is everything. Your process, and for BlockFi, I would love to interview you and hear your process and hear about what you've had to go through and vice versa. So it's just like everything, anything that anybody can talk about, there's process about it. So I'm a geek and I'm nerdy when it comes to that. So I love hearing people speak about personal process and whatever they're into, and what gets them through and how they deal with the trials and tribulations, the ups and downs of it, and and coming out.
Anybody with any level of success can speak a lot to the process to get there, kind of what they had to sacrifice in order to make it happen. So no matter what, like you said, no matter what walk of life, sports, business, I don't know, cooking, writing, whatever it is, everybody has their to get to where they are today.
All the same, man.
Perfect. I'm excited to check it out. Can you tell our audience where they can go find your podcast, Twitter, everywhere else? Where can they go find you?
It's not out yet, so you can't find any of it just yet. But you can find me on Twitter at RyanGrant25, and you can find me on Instagram, Ryan.Grant. You can find me on Facebook, but I probably won't respond, so don't even.
Twitter, Instagram, maybe not Facebook. Go check him out. Ryan, thanks so much for coming on. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely, Ryan. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed the most recent episode of Moving the Chains. If so, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the video. We got a ton of great new content coming for the rest of 2021. We're talking all things Bitcoin, crypto, sports, investing with the biggest names in the industry. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.